Welcome to Spokes. This podcast was built for college students to aim for a balanced living. We give you tips, tricks, advice, and guest speakers in order to help you in making your balanced lifestyle. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, Zhi.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course. Yeah, so for a little bit of context, she attends Illinois State University studying speech pathology. And I had her come on as a guest onto this podcast because I really value her personal experiences and testimony on the difference between transitioning from high school to college. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me again, and let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get started.
Awesome.
So to kind of kick things off, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on the transition period between high school and college.
I think that's a really good question. I think that a lot of people have that thought and that mindset of college is like a huge change. And don't get me wrong, I do believe it is. But for me, I've always been ready to go out into the big world, and I've been ready to always meet new people and everything. And so I was super pumped and kind of like getting away and just really seeing how I do on my own. And so the transition was actually a lot smoother than I thought. And so I thought, when I was moving in, meeting new people and like just seeing a lot of new people, it'd be different. But I was like, you know what? It's the start of my new chapter. So I'm super excited. How about you?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That's an awesome experience, and I can definitely attest to that. I think by the time I was done with high school, I was super pumped to move on. I go to U of I, and so just being able to attend U of I and be at my dream school and go to business school especially has just been such a blessing. And
yeah.
I used to look up to those students that go to Illinois, and so being able to actually be one of those students now is super surreal for me. Transitioning from high school to college was a little scary just because I'd never been away from my family that long, but I knew this was a step up in becoming a young adult, and I knew that I needed to take this next step in kind of transitioning from being at home full-time to now on my own. With this being said, I think this is such a great opportunity because the best way that you can grow, I think, in most areas is when you're uncomfortable. And so being able to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation is super incredible, even if it might be intimidating in the moment.
Totally agree. I just think that how you said being away from your family, that's a big transition. And like for me, it didn't hit me until a few weeks in, where like I didn't have my parents to go to like every second of the day. And I would still call them every day, but it's definitely different when they're not there in person, and you really have to fly.
Yeah. So speaking of success and kind of having to fly out of the nest on your own, there's a lot of differences between high school and college. The classes are a lot more rigorous, and you have to kind of have this really elite time management skills, or else, sometimes it can get really overwhelming, especially on what you're studying.
Agreed, yeah.
So what are kind of your takeaways or skill sets that you've had to learn, especially in time management skills?
I always obviously put academics ahead because another question I ask myself every time, especially like I remember back in high school is when I really started doing this. I would always ask myself, do I want to do this activity later on? And usually it's like this homework or something, and I usually don't want to. And I want to be able to spend time with friends later. So it really just like makes me forces myself to get my work done, get the grind in, and just also I'm an early person, so I like to, go to the gym, get my workout done, so that way I can go to my classes and really not be stressed out when I'm hanging out with friends. But how about you? How has that worked out for you?
Yeah, no. So having time management skills in college isn't easy. It takes a lot of work, and honestly, the best advice I give to students who are transitioning from high school to college is just to immerse yourself in that schedule. You're not really going to know what time management looks like for you until you have your class schedule. You know what your involvements are. You're trying to meet new friends, especially as a freshman or a transfer student, and so you don't really know what your time management looks like and how your buildup of that schedule or daily life is going to look like for you. And so everyone's type of time management looks different. But I'm very similar to you in the fact that I'm a morning person. I love to, get up in the morning. I like to have my own personal time.
Yes.
I like to work out in the morning. It just makes me feel more refreshed. And it takes my day, I've already succeeded. No matter what happens throughout the day, I've already had a win for the day.
Yes.
That's kind of my mindset behind that. I love to hit my classes kind of earlier in the day so
Mhm.
that later in the day I can, be involved in other extracurriculars,
Totally.
and kind of have that social time as well. I feel like that's so important in college is not only having a balanced lifestyle and having those involvements, but then also being social. So another thing I wanted to ask you too with time management is how do you kind of fit in social time and being able to find your right people? Because I know a lot of people listening to this, transitioning from high school to college, they
Yeah.
may be freaking out, oh my gosh, who am I gonna be friends with? Like
Yeah.
if you, especially if you go to a larger university, there's so
Hmm.
many people, there's so many things to get involved in. So how do you kind of find your people?
That's a great question. I feel like you kind of just get a vibe with some people. Like if you guys click, like the people I'm like really good friends with now, we just click so well. And I just kind of think that you have to have your like interests the same, but also your values and what you value, what you believe in too. Because like you if you get with the wrong group of friends, you start to look at your life and your like friend your the choices of your friends, like you start to second guess yourself. And I think that it's important to kind of hang out with them for a few weeks, like kind of test it out, test the waters and see how you feel. And like think self reflect is another thing. Is like asking yourself, do you really feel comfortable? Can you be your true authentic self with these friends? And the people that I've become friends with, I truly believe that I have, and like I have nothing to hold back. And then if they don't like something of it, they walk away. But hasn't happened yet, so hopefully.
That's so
But
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
what about you?
I totally agree with that. I think it's so hard, especially at first, to really find your friend group, and it's okay if it changes. I feel like a lot of people kind of get stuck in that mindset of, oh my gosh, I met a friend, she's good, or they're okay, but I don't really agree with the things that they do, and it's okay to have diversity within the friend group. I feel
Hmm.
like that just
Agree.
opens your perspective
Yeah,
of your life and other people's lives and where
yeah,
they've come from. I think I've learned so much from my friend group and their diversity, not just within their own culture, but then within their own family dynamic and other things of that sort. Like I've learned so much about different cultures and
yeah,
things of that sort that I wouldn't have learned if I surrounded myself in a friend group that I was kind of like all the same.
yeah,
We came from the same like family dynamic. We all came from the same area. We all went to the
yeah,
same school. So I
yeah.
think kind of immersing yourself in a new diverse environment where you're
Hmm.
always learning new things. I have a friend who's trilingual.
That's
So
amazing. That's so fun.
so like I get to hear how she's trying to learn, two languages at the same time. Like that's incredible. And it
Yeah,
makes me want to pursue something new and wants me to learn. And so
exactly.
I think also setting yourself up with a friend group that also wants to make you succeed and
Hmm.
pushes you to your next best self. I think if you're setting yourself up in a friend group where people are being judgy or people are not
Yeah,
wanting you to
yeah,
really succeed because deep down they feel intimidated by you or
yeah,
you feel like you're uncomfortable around them and you can't really express what you're feeling or how you're doing or if something really good happens in your
yeah.
life you feel like that might be a knock on them because they're not at that stage in their life.
Hmm.
If any of that feels uncomfortable, then you're probably not with the right friends.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted any thoughts or examples you might have on your feelings behind that.
Yes, I was actually you sparked an idea when you were just talking about that. So we have this friend in our group. She's super nice, but it's very everything's competitive with her,
Mm.
and it kind of just drags the group down. It's how you were saying, like when you don't have friends who don't lift you up, are they really your friends? So that's just what I was thinking of, and I feel like especially with college, you want to really keep self evaluating yourself, and just like keep asking yourself those questions, like am I with the right people? Are they making me be myself? Do I have to put on a facade, put on a front? And that's just like one of the biggest questions I have to keep
Yeah.
asking myself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I guess a little bit more deeper into socialization, but then also in your values. How have you been able to have that kind of balanced living and also socializing, but then also being okay with your type of values and what you believe in? More so turning into faith life. I know you're Christian.
Yeah.
I'm Catholic, and so that's very similar in like we love Jesus, right?
Right.
And we want to have a relationship with Him. And
Hmm.
so, what does that look like for you? And how do you kind of fit faith life into your daily living as a college student?
Yeah. That's an awesome point that you just made. I think that with me wanting to find the right group of people, it was mostly like them wanting to be like my friend group wanting to be a faith-based Christian group. Because there are people who drink, smoke, and just get all into bad habits of life. And I believe like if you find a group of people who are similar, but yet we all have different beliefs and values, but we're like pieces of a puzzle, right? We still fit within each other, but we still have our differences, but not so big of differences that tear us apart. And I think that I was very lucky to find a group of people who also love Jesus and were wanting to just be in that nice, close knit community of friends and not being ashamed of who you are and just really being yourself.
Yeah,
So
I love that authenticity, and I love that
yeah,
you're so like, you want to have that relationship, and that I love how you found friends that kind of have their own
hmm
faith life, and want to walk that relationship with him, and then being able to have that supportive community behind them
yeah,
to back you in that is so valuable.
yeah,
Because I know that can be hard at times, especially in college. Because when you go to college, it's very known for people to be kind of involved in their faith. But
hmm
then college is kind of the first time where you're not forced to wake up and go to mass, on Sundays,
yeah.
right? You're not forced to
You have that
pray,
decision.
right? It's your decision now. You're
hmm
an adult. You can make your own decisions. And so a lot of people kind of fall out of their faith. And so it is important to kind of surround yourself with people who also have that as one of their main beliefs. It's kind of funny you brought up, faith life and how you surround yourself with that community, because the point of spokes, or the spokes of your life,
Yeah.
is I try and, do the things I can in order to make myself, succeed and have a better life. But in
hmm
reality, there's only so much I can control.
Yeah.
And so I have to kind of give some of that up to God, and knowing that he has a future plan for me and you.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so the center of that wheel of your life, for me
hmm
anyway, is my faith life.
Yeah.
And so
totally.
I feel like God has each spoke of my life together.
Already planned out. You just got to follow it,
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Totally
exciting.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another thing I wanted to kind of touch on in involvements is
Yeah.
kind of how you got involved on campus, right? We talked about involvements and how you can do time management skills
Mhm.
and be involved in your faith life, but how did you find the right involvements? Because I know quad day is such a
Yeah.
great day, but it's also super overwhelming, and
Yeah.
every, club on campus is trying to get you in the door. So I want your experience on how you kind of found your involvements over time.
Yeah, so we kind of have a quad day too, where all the RSOs, what we call them, we kind of come out
Yeah.
on the quad and just like set up and like are trying to get more people involved.
Mhm.
And I literally went to all of them.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna find one I love. And so at least for the first couple months of school, I would try to go to all the ones that I was interested in. But then I realized, oh, this is gonna be a lot of time commitment. And I'm like asking myself again, am I gonna have time for this and have time with spending friends and having time for myself?
Yeah.
And majority of those were no. So, but I was for sure like I wanted something. I wanted a club related to my major, something with my minor in Spanish, and then just some fun things that I like to do. I like to crochet, and so I
Mhm.
found a club for that, like rock climbing. So just like a little more like active
Mhm.
clubs, and then more like school serious
Yeah.
clubs. But
Yeah.
how
No.
about you?
I think that was very similar. I went to almost every booth on quad day. I genuinely did not know what I wanted to do. At some point, I was so convinced I wanted to join rowing club.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, no, it sounded awesome. But the practices would start at like 4:30 in the morning. It was terrible. Even though I'm a
Yeah.
morning person, I don't think I could wake up that early.
That early, yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And so it was really hard for me to find what I wanted to be involved in.
Yeah.
But I think over time I had to, similar to you, I wanted something that was focused on my major, right?
Mhm.
That would able to help me outside of school.
Mhm.
But then it also was another involvement that would help me personally, right? Or something that I was interested in that wasn't related to my
Yeah.
major. So over time, I actually became really involved with AMA, which is the American Marketing Association on
Yes,
campus.
we have that too.
Yeah, so I'm actually a VP of marketing now, and so
Look at you. Okay.
with my marketing major, that
That's
obviously,
exciting.
yeah. So I'm very excited for this upcoming year, and that aligns obviously really well with my
Mhm.
major, and so that's been able to help me with my marketing skills and everything like that. In terms of non-major things. I actually co-founded a club called Clubs Communities,
Woohoo!
which is a new club on campus,
Mm-hmm.
which provides basically resources and advice for freshmen and transfer students on how to get involved on campus.
Oh, that's
And so,
fun.
yeah, we kind of give them like some recommendations on their interests and kind of match them with the club that would be best fit for them.
Yeah.
Because personally, like a discussion we're having right now, I feel like it
Yeah.
was kind of, we were just thrown in the deep end and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
yep, so figure out what you want to do.
Yeah,
And
with no like real guidance or
yes,
anything.
no real guidance or anything. You kind of just had to figure it out and listen to word of mouth
Yeah.
and what was good for you. So having an established club where we kind of provide that services for you,
Yeah.
you can save so much time on trying to find what you want to be involved in.
Yeah.
And then that can kickstart you into being more involved in the club and being more involved in having that kind of leadership positions earlier.
Yeah.
Because I felt like my first semester of college, I was still trying to test things out.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, support system, I feel like they could have already been like off and running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember like, during quad day, you kind of had to like figure out clubs that you wanted to do because obviously the clubs are for you, for the students and for what your interests are. And I kind of agree, like, even with some of my clubs, it feels like we're still on the outs because we don't know every details about the organization. And I think knowing that would be really helpful in knowing like what they do, what their role is, like what the different roles are within the organization and like the leadership positions you were talking about. I think that would have definitely helped in like at least not feeling so like awkward, I guess, when you're in that club. Because there's a club I was in, I still am, but like it was a little awkward because we never really did like formal introductions. So we were just coming, every month, and yeah, it still felt awkward.
Yeah.
But I feel like being able to have that organization just like really making you feel welcome and like don't be afraid, don't be shy, you got this. I think that would have really helped.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that. Kind of moving more towards health and well-being.
Yeah.
You and I ran the Illinois half marathon
Woo!
in April. I know, so exciting.
Yeah.
This is your second half marathon completed, technically. And this was my first half marathon. So with that being said, how were you able to kind of balance all of this that we've talked about, but then also having a proper workout and sleep schedule? Because I know training for a half marathon while also being a full-time student and being super involved and having a great faith life and having good social, right?
Yeah.
It sounds
It's a lot.
It's a lot, right? It sounds perfect, right? I mean, it's ideal for anyone who wants to,
right?
Right? Everyone wants to be in shape. Everyone wants to have that great social, environment. But what are things that were challenging for you, or what were things that you had to say no to in order to have that goal of finishing in April?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that I just like whenever you get on any kind of plan or schedule, you're very like in the first few weeks or even months, you're very adamant about like going and staying consistent. But then you're so focused on that you kind of forget that you have a social life, you have your organizations you can go to, you have friends to tend to, And I just think that it really helped that the half marathon was in the spring because the springtime, you don't have much to do outside. And so I was lucky enough to like once it got warmer out, I was able to just do that in the mornings or like afternoons when no one was at least that I didn't know of any of my friends were doing anything. But it definitely was harder to kind of like balance, me wanting to get my weights in because I just love lifting in general. And then also staying on track of my plan for running. But I found out that it's easier to do your workouts all in the morning because no one is going to be, at least my friends, no one is up at 6 a.m. So it was easier for me to feel less FOMO, I would say. And I think that really helped. And because a lot of my friends, I was able to see them in the afternoon or whatnot. And so, but having the run in the spring made it definitely a lot easier because in the fall, the weather's still good, it's still nice, it's still warm out. And my friends and I, we play volleyball for like 5 hours.
Oh, so fun.
So after playing for 5 hours, am I really going to want to wake up at 5 a.m.? No. So it definitely helped that it was in the spring and that the weather wasn't the best. So I was able to still kind of balance that. And there were times where I did skip, like, friends friends time or leave earlier than what I really wanted to. And just having that discipline of, I gotta wake up early, so I gotta do this,
Yeah.
So it was challenging at times, but I think it worked out in the end. Yeah. But how about you?
No, for sure. I think with the discipline topic, oh
Yeah.
my goodness. For me, this was, for context, Zhi-Yu and I go way back since middle school, even.
Elementary
school. Wow. It's been so long.
Yeah.
And I remember getting into cross country. You were such an influential person in my life. Oh my gosh, she was so good at cross country. She still is such a great runner. And I remember joining because I thought it would be a great time to socialize more with you and kind of improve on my discipline in elementary school. But I hated running. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, it was terrible. I remember Z would be in the APAC, right? She'd be coming back as I'm still going out,
there.
Right? Yeah, she'd be like on the way back, and I'd just, I'd be already cooked.
What?
Yeah. Right. I'm like, you're already done? That's crazy. I just started.
Right.
But you really motivated me in terms of running and having more discipline.
Oh,
and seeing you, going back to the whole friend group and wanting to push myself and having kind of being able to go outside my comfort zone in order to achieve something I wasn't comfortable with before, you definitely showed me that was possible. And you gave me support and motivation to be able to do that.
Aww.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you for that.
Happy to serve.
Yeah. And so now that we're in college, I felt like now I didn't have I played basketball all 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
And so because I didn't have that regimented basketball schedule, right? Workouts every day, weightlifting, cardio, right? All that stuff. I didn't have workouts to do anymore. And so
you're like, what am I going to do with my life?
Right. What am I going to do? And
with all this free time.
Being able to get back into running and doing that was hard and challenging. But with discipline and a good regimented schedule, I feel like I was able to succeed in that. And being able to wake up early, I felt like really kickstarted my day on the right foot.
Totally.
But it was hard at times. I felt like there was really a lot of times where I was socializing with a group and, how college kids are.
Yeah.
Hangouts typically don't start until like 8:30, 9 p.m.
Right.
And so it's hard if you want to wake up early, say at like 5:30, 6 a.m. if your hangouts start at 9 p.m. Right. And so there were times I'd have to leave social events early to make sure I got my 8 hours of sleep in order for me to be able to have a good workout the next day. So it is really about that balance, but it's also about that disciplined time and being able to say no to things. So more so on saying no to things, I guess, in your perspective, was it hard to say no to social events or say no to going out and drinking because it would mess up the next day with your training and everything like that, even though there is a time and place? Obviously, don't drink if you're underage or anything like that. But in moderation, like, you do you.
Yeah, totally agree. I just think that it's, especially how you were talking about, like, you not, like, running when you were growing up or, like, you were doing it for basketball or softball for another sport. I just think that, especially in college, you really begin to learn yourself, especially as a person and, like, what you're capable of through running. And that's what I love so much about running in college. And I think that saying no to things, it's just all up to you. It's to your discretion, I think that you can have one day off, 1 or 2 days off. And because I totally believe in rest, you can't, and good hours of sleep. And if you think you're, like, truly tired, you can maybe just stay and hang out with your friends and not do your workout. Because there were times where I was like, oh my gosh, my body feels so tired. I feel so sore just from weights and running that I was like, I need tomorrow to be a day off. Even though it wasn't originally supposed to, but you also got to listen to your body too, if you're not feeling good, don't do it. Even though you're like so set on this plan and the schedule and you're like, no, I have to, that's good for your discipline, but like also health and safety first.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped me say no to some things and be like, no, I gotta skip this outing, or no, it's okay, I can skip this running tomorrow because of how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of my friends knew I was training for half, so they understood. They were very understanding, and I think that really helps. If you are just in the dark about this, they're going to be thinking like, oh, yeah, But also, luckily, I don't have friends that are like that, or they don't act like that. But what about you?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love your personal experiences of that, and that's super insightful. One thing I wanted to add, I actually listened to a podcast recently, and it talked about how a lot of people, may be listening and saying, "Oh, well, I don't think I can do all of this in one day." And realistically, you're not doing all those things in one day. You may be doing like 3 or 4 of those things every day, but you're not doing all of them. And so kind of
good to have a goal, though.
Right. It's good to have goals. And so on the topic of goals, how can people kind of transition from short-term success to long-term success? I feel like with this period in our lives where a lot of things are short dopamine effects of the scroll, right? And how that kind of correlates to goals. I feel like a lot of people are wanting those short-term goals, but they're not willing to put in the work. Yeah. There's not really a thing of short-term goals, right? Unless you want to get that quick dopamine effect of scrolling, right? You're not going to really have goals in the short term, but the long-term goals are so much more, I guess, there's so much more, what's the word?
Like more goals and like more like time and thought process in long term. Yes. Because like you don't really see the changes in short term. Right. One thing I'm going to say about the short term is I do believe there are short term goals, as in like a few months or like a semester. I do believe that is a thing, but it's just like for me personally, I feel like if you have a short term goal, it's gonna like you're gonna be less motivated because you're like, oh, it'll be done soon. But like for me, for the long term, like half marathon, it was long. There were some weeks that it just felt like it was long, like just the training, and I'm like, oh, like I really felt like, oh, yeah, right. And because I started in like late January or early February, and I didn't stop until race day. Yeah, and that's a good 2-3 months of training, and that's a long time.
That is a long time.
And running 6 days a week, that it gets tiring. Yep. And so I just think that long term is really gonna like test your limits and your strength and your discipline to keep going.
For sure. No, I love that. I guess expanding more on my belief on short-term goals, what I mean is like you can't compare somebody that is still on training wheels, right? Or if you translate that to, running a marathon, right? You can't translate yourself who maybe ran a mile in a month, right? And you're still trying to build on yourself as a runner or whatever you're trying, your goal, long-term goal is. You can't compare yourself to someone who's been training for marathons for years, right? That's comparing somebody who may be on training wheels and somebody who can ride a bicycle and do flips or whatever.
Yes, I totally agree.
So kind of expanding on that in short-term goals, but I do agree, you have to enjoy the journey.
Yes, and so on the journey.
On the journey, right. And so there was another analogy I heard recently that was really good, right? Yeah. A lot of people want to just leap over the mountain and just leap over it and say that you completed it, but you're not willing to take the hike up that mountain. Yeah. You're not willing to take
the climb by Miley Cyrus.
You're not able to take that climb seriously, and you're not enjoying the view as you're climbing, right? The view gets better as you're climbing, and then as you reach that peak, you'll see the best view out of it because you worked for it. Yes. As you get closer, that view is going to get more clear and more clear and more beautiful as you keep going.
I love that.
Yeah, but as you get to that peak too, I kind of want to establish, tapering as well. Yeah. Because for those student athletes out there, I know there's that peak where you get there, it's race day, right? And everyone loves it. You've been training for like 3, 4, I trained for the half marathon for 6 months. Wow. Yeah, it was a long time, but I was dedicated and I wanted to be able to finish it, and I had a long-term goal.
And heck yeah, you did.
And we finished it.
We did, yes.
Sub 2 hours too. Yeah. That was awesome. But kind of talking about tapering, right? Because you get to the top of that mountain, or you finish that race, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on the top of the world. Yeah. But
you're also exhausted.
You're exhausted.
From all that training.
Yes. Yep. And so I want to kind of hear your thoughts on, is it okay to take a break after reaching that goal, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do the next thing, right? Yeah. That adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is something I wanted to say about that climb, that analogy you made there. Mm-hmm. I saw something that was like, your training is like what you're working for, and then race day is your victory lap.
Yes, I saw that too. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I love that. And that kind of reminded me of your analogy with the mountain. It's the journey that is is what's really going to test you in what you should be enjoying, even though sometimes it might be hard. But you know what? You're getting better every day.
Mhm.
If you're running 1 mile, that's more than 0, right?
Right.
And then I just loved how they said how the race day is your victory lap. Like all that training, now you just go out and have fun.
Yep.
And we did.
But
going back to what you said, what did you say again? Sorry.
Yeah, so no, you're okay. It was more about just tapering. And is it okay, like, you reach that goal, right? It might be people who got into their dream school, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I made it, right? I made it to that next goal, or I made it to that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people, they'll have that adrenaline, and they're like, oh crap, what do I do after this, right?
Yes.
Life still goes on, and it's okay to not have those, like, super great goals, right? Because they all come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, talking about tapering, I ran that half marathon, and then I did some, like, cohesive, right, like, workouts and just, like, casual, like, recovery after that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not be at that super intensive workout schedule and, like, super
24/7.
intensive 24/7, because I feel like you would just not be, it's not obtainable.
Yeah.
Right?
That's for sure. And your body needs a break. And that's the thing. Like, for me, originally my thought process after the run was I'm gonna take a week off, and then it ended up being the rest of the school year. And I was like, you know what, it's okay, my body needs a break. And like, I was getting up to like 40 miles a week for training, and that's a lot. And so I was like, you know what, it's okay, my body needs to rest. And then once summer started, I got back into it, got into running, and yet right now I'm still not where I would like to be. But you know, it's just like summer heat, I'm just like, the motivation is really low.
Yeah, right.
But what about you? How is tapering and just like taking a break from running?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it was just okay realizing that you needed that recovery time, and that it's okay to not be at that intensive point all the time. For every peak, there's always going to be a slope as well.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, as a business major, I kind of refer to the stock market sometimes.
Okay.
It kind of ebbs and flows, right? And so sometimes it'll peak and sometimes it'll dip, but at the end of the day, the stock market, its stock price for the most part will go up again at some point.
If there's a hill, there's going to be a downhill, and there's going to be an uphill, you know, same thing.
Right, yeah. So that kind of transitions, I guess, to college students, and how there's always going to be some good times and there's always going to be some bad times. And so there's a lot of people who may be listening saying, I don't really know what to do moving forward. You guys, you know, you talk a lot about running, you talk about all this like balanced living, but I don't know where to start. So if you were to talk to, you know, Zhi-Yu Kolmer at ground zero when you were just coming in as a freshman, what are some like tangible tips that you could give to these people that are wanting to have a successful lifestyle?
And always like they're hungry for more.
Right.
Yeah. I would say know your limits. Especially, I was actually talking to some friends about like what they thought they would want to know too, and I thought they made great points about, you know, know your limits. You know what you can and can't do. One of my friends had a single room, and she was like, it's not that big it's not as big as you think, so you can't bring your whole room from home. So, and another thing was that college is easier than you think. But I think that's just freshman year.
Right.
So,
we'll
see. What about you?
I totally agree. For me, I feel like when it comes to college, you just have to be okay with, you know, things changing, right? Yeah. It's not going to be the same. And I feel like I was really intimidated at first, but now I'm so grateful that I was in that position. And so what I would give advice to my younger self is just be okay with change and be okay with being uncomfortable, because that will put you in a situation where you're able to have the most growth. And so I know that's kind of vague, but what I'm meaning by that is you just have to take things in strides, and that you might not be okay with everything that you're involved in at first, but it's okay to make the wrong decisions. I feel like in school, you're kind of like trained to always be correct, right? Yeah. If you raise your hand and say the wrong answer, right, you're gonna be ridiculed. Yeah, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's so dumb. Like, why would she say that, right? That's not the right answer, right? Or that she's just like, nice try, but no. But nice try. Right, in your head, you're like, oh man, I screwed up. Right? But you're trying, right? Yeah. And so through school, I feel like you're trained to not try unless you know exactly the right answer. But as you transition into young adult life, you don't have the right answer for everything. And so how are we able to transition away from in academics where we're kind of trained not to have wrong answers? And when we do have the wrong answer, right, we just like internally feel terrible, right? And that we can't ever make the wrong choices. But in reality, we do. And so how can we combat what we've been trained to do through academics, but then also be okay with making the wrong choices?
And that's what college is all about, I think.
Learning from your mistakes.
Yes. To give anything your best is a waste of a gift.
Yeah, right. So, no, yeah, and I feel like I learned this actually in basketball. We actually learned more from the games we lost than the games we won.
I agree. I would 100% agree, especially with soccer. Yeah, 100%. Because there's more growth to be learned in the games lost, because there's not everything went right in those games, you know?
Yes, for sure. And so just to close it out, I feel like for people listening, it's okay to take life in strides. And I totally understand that you may be looking up to college students right now and be like, they have it all put together. But this this episode is here to show you that we're still trying to figure things out as 19, 20-year-olds, right?
Yes.
We're still trying to figure things out as young adults. And it's okay to make the wrong choices, because that's what life is all about. Life struggles are sometimes not bad. Sometimes struggle is just a sign that you're still living.
Yeah, life's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
So
exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode, Zhi-Yu.
Yeah.
And appreciate you being here. And
thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.
Hope to do it in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode on Spokes. I hope that you were able to take away some tips and tricks that you could apply to your daily living. And if you could please follow, share, and comment on your thoughts and suggestions for new topic ideas. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode.